Hello, it's good to see you. I'm Dr. Julie Allig, aka the Data Diva, coming to you from here live from Manchester, New Hampshire, which surprisingly today it is nice out. The sun is shining outside and there is no water in my basement. So this is a good thing. So ending the week on a high note here in New England in the United States. Welcome back to those of you who have watched before, and hi to those of you catching the replay. Um, if you're watching live, thank you so much for joining me on a Friday afternoon. I'm here every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, so lunchtime for my friends over on the West Coast. You can watch here on LinkedIn, or some of you might be watching over on my YouTube channel. And if you also want to check out any recordings that I've done previously, they're all housed over on my YouTube channel. And I'll put that right down here for you. There you go. So today I wanted to talk about AI, and mainly because it's been on the brain this week. Um, I had a couple of reasons why. Because first, I gave a talk yesterday to a group of consultants and entrepreneurs in Massachusetts about ways that businesses, and especially entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, can be using generative AI to streamline their business processes, many times in ways that they had never thought of. And then the second reason this has been especially on my mind is I attended virtually, I attended a conference down at Harvard Business School on Tuesday, which was all about generative AI, and, and had a lot of people, appropriately for a business school, right? A lot of people who are in business right now who own businesses, some of them really big businesses, how they're using it and how they're approaching it with their team. And so there's just been, and that is on top of just the daily, just fire hose of information that comes through about updates and changes and this, that, the other. And so I thought, that would be a really good topic because to talk about with you all, because a lot of times people don't think about the entrepreneurs, the solopreneurs, the people who really are doing a ton of things and really can benefit the very most from being able to incorporate generative AI in their day to day. And effectively, by doing this, we're able to increase the size of their team in a lot of ways. And what exactly do I mean by that? I will let you know. You know, the first way that I'm seeing that is a nice way of transferring over these kind of theoretical ideas that maybe are used in education or um, some of the other sectors of businesses, and that really scales nicely down to just the entrepreneurs, the smaller businesses among us, is to use generative AI to do role playing. And role playing in the sense of treating the AI, um, could be ChatGPT, could be Claude, could be Gemini, could be take your pick of the large language models out there, but using it to have that back and forth. And This is akin to what I talked about, a month or 2 ago when I was talking about ways that law firms and attorneys can be using generative AI. And then I was talking about using this particular aspect of it, the role playing aspect, to prep a witness, maybe an expert witness, to help sharpen your own line of questions of certain witnesses or for cross examination or something. Here, same kind of idea, but especially for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, think about it more, especially in a sales context. We're all building relationships with our clients, our prospective clients, our referral partners. Instead of having to go in cold or maybe, practicing in front of the mirror, right? And kind of thinking myself about what the possible response of the other party to my conversation is, right? Let the Gen AI be that. And so here, what I'm talking about is something like what one of the panelists down at Harvard Business School on Tuesday was talking about. He was he's the head of a multinational um, company that invests and buys other companies, basically. And he mentioned that he had a meeting recently with the president of a country, and he was nervous about it. And he was thinking about, how am I going to prep myself for this? And, and thing else, and he started having a conversation and said to the generative AI, I want to have a conversation with the president of whatever country. Um, and what I want to do, what I want to get out of this is to, let's say, deepen our relationship, deepen our economic ties, something like that. And he went back and forth trying to figure out what he could say, what the other person might say back, what he could respond. And he's told on the panel, he told all of us in the audience that it ended up going so well, the conversation, that at the end of it, the president turned to his ministers and said, he knows our country better than some of you do. So, again, but here, I want to say we're not all in a position in our businesses where we're going to be talking to ministers, political figures, heads of companies necessarily, but we're talking to people who are just as important. We're talking to our clients, we're talking to potential clients. And sometimes it helps. And my in my experience, it helps most of the time if I can do some sort of role playing kind of back and forth. So I can think through how to um, counter some of the objections that a client might raise. Think about this also in our sales conversations and how we can come figure out like what might be the objections that a client raises or a prospective client raises. We don't have the budget for this. No one's ever heard that, right? So we don't have the budget for this. Well, what might be a way to continue the relationship, even though first out of the gate offer is not one that the potential client can necessarily sign on the dotted line for? So, underused, I tend to think, it's my sense from talking with other professionals, but it's something that I really think can help to up our game, especially as entrepreneurs, as solopreneurs. so that we really can nail our message. The second is proposal creation. And if you're the kind of solopreneur that I am, lots of other kinds of entrepreneurs, you need to put together some sort of statement of work and a proposal that is persuasive, that gets across exactly what your capabilities are and how your capabilities dovetail so nicely with whatever the pain points are that your potential client has. And so think about generative AI as the way to start coming up with a very tailored, very strategic kind of proposal, persuasive document that you can use. And what would you do? Like how would this actually happen? Well, you most likely have at the very least a template for proposals that you've used before. You might actually have some proposals that you've used before. Now, go ahead and use that attachment feature that's right there in the prompt window for all of these large language models and upload your proposals as a document. Um, Give it specific instructions for how it is supposed to craft this proposal. I'm going to call it a draft proposal because I think we all know by now we would never simply take what comes out of a large language model, a generative AI, and simply pass it on. We would definitely review it and make sure that everything was in order. But you can tell it, okay, take this, come up with a draft. This is typically the structure of proposals that have um, resulted in me winning business from clients in the past. You can also include instructions to the Gen AI. Take note of the tone of my proposals here that I'm sending you. Make sure the language is professional. Maybe you are, if you're a lawyer, if you're an attorney, you're going to want that very kind of formal academic kind of writing. If you're in another field, you might want to tell the generative AI, make sure you use certain words or phrases that are common in the field. You might want to tell it, don't be too formal. Be a little bit more laid back, but not like surfer dude language or something like that. Familiar, but not too familiar. That sort of thing. In more specific terms, especially with Chat GPT, you can go and basically what you're doing by doing this is manually playing around with like the temperature of what's going on. So those of you who are familiar with this, you can go into the playground, you can go into using Chat GPT from the API interface. And you can dial up or dial back the temperature and things like that. You can also do it on the front end simply by including all of this as context in your prompt. And so give it specific directions too. Don't just upload stuff and say, give me a proposal. Um, Tell it exactly, I want a proposal, 10 pages. I want the first page to include a nice piece of cover art. I want the second page to be a table of contents. The third page should be a quick summary with the offers and their price with a total at the bottom. The fourth page should be, you get it? Because the more directive you are, the better the product is going to be on the other end. And then basically what we're doing here, my friends, is creating a structured prompt, a very structured prompt, and letting the Gen AI go to town with it. And by the end of it, once you've done that, and this should only be taking you maybe 10 minutes to do, and then wait for it to come back with something and then edit it and see what you do. You might not like what it says, and so you might have to ask it to revise. But again, instead of facing that blinking cursor that we all face and not quite knowing, just having all these ideas in our head and not quite knowing where to start, this gives us a much more concrete place to start. And it's such a time saver. So the second one, use it to help create your proposals. The third is one that I talk about a lot, not here on this live stream, but I talk about it a lot with my colleagues. But the audience had never thought about doing this. And a couple of people in the audience actually are in the HR space. They were in talent acquisition and they had never really even thought of doing this sort of task using generative AI. And that's basically doing very personalized prospect research. So, especially if there's one client that you would love to work with, right? And or maybe one influencer in whatever industry or niche that you're in that you would really want to work with. Well, how are you going to strategize? How are you going to package your offer and your communications with that person so that they can see very clearly the synergies between you and them, why you're the right person to help solve whatever pain point has gotten a little too painful? Well, start doing research and start using some types of generative AI, maybe some bots, some chat bots. Um, Go out on LinkedIn, find information about them. First place that we probably would start. What about what their website looks like? What about other social media posts? If this is the kind of business that has a social media presence, what about any press releases? What about annual reports? And the ideas just keep coming. Once you've been able to gather all that, package that up nicely and feed that itself right back into the generative AI and start having a conversation back and forth with it where you're asking the generative AI, you're saying, listen, um, I want to reach out to this person because XYZ. And I've gathered quite a lot of information on them or this company, whatever, and I'm going to upload it here. I want you to craft a personalized email greeting, keeping in mind this. The end strategy for me, the end game is I would love to have them sign on as a client. What are their pain points? Knowing me and knowing, and you've probably uploaded also as part of that package you've uploaded something about you and your business and your skills and previous clients that have worked with you. So knowing me and knowing what this person or this company is looking for, what kind of a gap is there? How can I help them? How can I position myself to be the solution to solving this problem? To not having steady recurring revenue, to not having forecasts that are working on a consistent basis and predict anything, right? That happens a lot. It's easy enough to forecast out, but actually having forecasts that actually do the job, and that's the challenge. So, and again, when you're doing this with the generative AI, make sure you talk about what kind of tone to use. Do you want a very formal tone? Do you want a more conversational tone? Do you know anything about the person's background, their hobbies? Are they particularly involved in some charities? Here in New Hampshire and within kind of my local business network, there's a lot of people who support the Make a Wish Foundation. So, something like that. Is there something that I could mention that would help to build that relationship? And then tell the Gen AI, I need a focused call to action at the very end. Ask it, what would be this about the company and their pain points? What would be 5 very, very interesting, tempting, persuasive calls to action? And there you go. And again, 5 emails, something like that. You could have that initial email and then, come up with another couple in case the first one doesn't quite hit or whatever. But there you go. And again, very personalized using publicly available data and information that's out there and using the large language model, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, take your pick, um, using that to really help figure out how to position yourself best. The fourth is to automate repetitive tasks. So at this point, we've talked a lot about um, using text, right? Using words, which is, you know, of course, because these are large language models. They deal with text. You you can use it for a lot more than that. So, using some low code or no code tools out there, like Zapier or something, you can actually set up, for example, an email sequence, a newsletter nurture sequence for previous clients or for referral partners, something like that. And you do not have to know how to code or anything, but being able to link together the chat GPTs with other software and other tools you have can just it's mind blowing if you think about it, what exactly you could take off your plate from having to worry about it all. I mean, we all know, those of us who are out on social media, we all know that it makes it a lot easier to be on social media if we schedule out posts, that sort of thing. Think about this as scheduling out posts on steroids, because this is the sort of thing where you can not just have the post, but it can just multiples can run and then other things can happen in the background and you're incorporating those large language models into things. So keep in mind that there's a lot out there. And Zapier is one. Most people know about Zapier. There are a lot of other ones, but eh, I'm not necessarily trying to endorse one and not others. Just that's the one that people tend to know. It's very user friendly. And a lot of these are specifically built to be user friendly, hence the name low code or no code solutions. And then the fifth going back to kind of, again, the uses for these large language models that are in line with language, um, which is what they're less uh, designed to really be outputting or generating, is content creation and especially marketing. For marketing content. So we already talked about creating proposals. So kind of using it in the sales process. But there's marketing within the sales process too, isn't there? And we'll never get to sales and a signed contract if there isn't some marketing on the front end of it, right? So think about ways that you could take the past year of your um, social media posts, package them up, and tell the generative AI tool to use those as an example in terms of tone and language. Um, come up with, I mean, you could schedule this out for how you come up with 10 ideas, 15 ideas, 20 ideas for a live stream, for a podcast, for Instagram posts, that sort of thing. Because and then what you're able to do is say, "And I want it to be on this theme. I want it to talk about this topic. I want you to include this influencer, or someone just released a book. I want to have mention of this book," or something like that. Think also in terms of marketing, social media is a big one, obviously. What about case studies? For some of us, where we work with a fewer number of clients, but in more depth, case studies are what's persuasive. And now think again, when we need to write, when I need to write, more and more, I'm thinking, how can I do that ideation, do that first draft, sharpen what I want to communicate by using Gen AI? And so think about uploading some not private details about your client, about a project, that sort of thing, and have it come up with a case study for you. And then if you really want to go to town, it's Friday. If you really want to go to town, think about using image generators also. So we could talk about Midjourney or Dolly or something like that to come up with the visuals that you might want to put in your case study. Again, taking so much of the time investment off of your plate as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, off of your team's plate, and being able to really focus on why you got into this in the first place. And so with that, those are my 5 ideas from a week of talking a whole lot about Gen AI and thinking a whole lot about Gen AI. We've got role playing, we've got creating proposals, we got personalized project prospect research, automations, automations, and integrating low code and no code solutions to really um, ramp up on that. And then content creation for marketing, certainly social media, but also other kinds of marketing. And so that's all I've got for you on this Friday afternoon where I almost can't believe it. The sun is still out here in New Hampshire. It's been like 30 minutes and the sun is still shining. Um, what do you think? Did I leave something out? For those of you in my audience who are solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, what else would you add? Put them down below in the comments. I'm assuming you're over on YouTube. Put them down below in the comments. Let me see. And if you've got any questions or you are still confused by something that I talked about, go ahead, put that down in the comments too. I respond to everything. More than happy to be a little more clear. about anything I talk about in terms of data or generative AI because I am right there with you. We are all in this together. We are all learning this at the same time. As several of the speakers mentioned on Tuesday, there are no instruction manuals for any of these Gen AI tools. We are learning on the fly. And so, honestly, I'm hopeful that maybe one of you has some ideas that I just have not come across or I have not thought up myself. It's very likely. Are you curious about using AI to streamline your business processes and maybe even try to do some of the heavy lifting of the analytics? Book a call with me and learn more about how I could support you in that. Link to my calendar schedule is down below in the description also, and we can find a time to connect. Until next time, thank you so much for being here and go forth and analyze, my friends.